Welcome back to another episode of the Lender Podcast. This week we're talking about something a little different than usual. I spent the last week in Tampa, and it was at they call it the Hard Money Mastermind Inner Circle, which is just a group that is been put on by the Hard Money Bakers guys, Chris and Jason, if you're familiar with them. They've got a great podcast on hard money lending. And what they do is every 6 months they have this group, this Inner Circle Mastermind, and you fly out to wherever they're hosting it. And it's a 2 to 3 day-ish event, and you basically sit in the room and you just geek out on everything private and hard money lending. And so this was my first time going ever, and I gotta say it was an incredible experience. So I wanted to kind of talk about the format, everything that I learned, some of the key takeaways, and hopefully I can compile it down into the digestible snippet that you guys can take, because I took about 4 or 5 different pages of notes. So the way it worked, this one was in Tampa, and I live in Idaho, and so it was a good distance away for me. So I also, I don't know what it is, but I'm not like big on traveling. I feel like when I fly, it kind of takes me like a day or so to kind of just like, I don't know if it's the pressure or what it is, but I just kind of feel off for a little bit. So anyway, I left on Monday, but the event didn't start until Wednesday. And so I left Idaho here on Monday, flew all day Monday, got in around pretty late. It was around 1:30 in the morning by the time I actually got to my hotel and got to sleep, just with some delays that we had due to weather with the flight, and then the Uber and picking up bags and anyway. So didn't really get in until around 2 a.m. on Tuesday morning early. And then I have a friend who actually lived in Tampa, and so we spent Tuesday, we did a day of golf. And so that was pretty nice to just kind of have a chill, relaxing day before we met up with everybody for the conference. And so that was good. So Wednesday, the meetup didn't really begin until about Thursday, and Wednesday was a golf day. So I had 2 back-to-back days of 18 holes of golf, which is a dream come true. So Wednesday we met around 10 a.m. Down in the lobby, and it was really great because I got to meet a couple of guys that are interested in golfing and obviously are private lenders. So we drove to, I'm pretty sure it was called Bel Air Country Club in Tampa. And my goodness, this is probably the nicest golf course I think I've ever played. It was insane, just pristine views, like you're right on the water. The greens were just insane. I honestly don't even want to know what the green fee cost, because I'm sure it was a pretty penny. And that was great. I got to network with a bunch of different people. Chris Casella from Sharper Capital. Obviously, I got to meet Chris and Jason for the first time, so that was really great. Also, some other guys, Joe Lieberman. He's probably lesser known, but still really great guy, awesome lender. Danny Pelosio, he's a lender out of Florida, right there, local in Tampa. Just amazing guys, so fun. Anyway, so we broke into, there were 8 of us playing golf. We broke into 2 separate groups of 4. And I think we started, our tee time was around noon, and then we got done probably around 5 or so. But it was, holy hell, was it hot. I mean, quite literally on about hole number 7, I was ready to call it quits, because it was so hot and so humid. And I left Idaho and it was snowing, and then I get to Florida, and even, wearing basically nothing, I was just drenched. So, we got some food at the turn, and then we were able to finish the 18 holes, but I was second guessing my life choices there for, for a little bit. So after golf, we had a meet and greet. There was just a rooftop bar that we went to at the hotel. It was great. Just got to kind of talk shop and chat with everyone that was there for the conference. Great food, and it was awesome. It was just a chill format. Just kick back and meet people and greet people and talk shop and see what they're doing and seeing how they're organizing things and structuring their business. The next morning was when, that Thursday morning was when it really the conference took off. And the format was really interesting, and I really liked it. So it was just a big conference room. Everybody showed up. There's all these tables lined up. Some people had partners. I don't have a partner, so I just it was just me, myself, and I. But the format was really, really neat because it was brag, share, ask, or maybe it was brag, ask, share. I don't know I can't remember the order, but basically everybody prepared a 30-minute presentation just talking about their business, how they do things, and each presentation had one of those three components: the brag, share, ask. So bragging was basically saying like, what have you done both prior to being a hard money lender? What you've probably had some sort of success in a different aspect of your professional life, and so share that, or maybe even just like share what's going on really well in your business. Share was just like some piece or tidbit of information that could be beneficial to the group. And then ask was obviously asking, for advice or tips or tricks or something on a specific component of your business that is either not going well or you want to improve or whatever it is. So really, really interesting hearing from everybody and the way that they all run their business. I think there were probably around 30 of us total. So that was the format, with the exception of Chris and Jason. They went a little bit longer. They took about an hour to an hour and a half. And Jason talked about the kind of the front end operations of how to onboard people and vet the loans and things like that. And then the next day on Friday, Chris did his presentation talking about the back end side of things, like managing investor capital and handling defaults and ways to kind of mitigate those and just make sure that everything goes as smoothly as possible when you can in a default situation. So that was the format. And like I said, I probably took 4 or 5 different pages of notes, but I wanted to briefly go through kind of the 10 key takeaways that I took just from listening to other people. So first and foremost, I've got a list here. I learned about something called SFR Analytics, and what this is it's a data company, and it's fairly pricey. It's anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a month, but basically they have data regarding loans that have closed in your market. You can get a list of all the borrowers, all the property addresses, and see who they're using. Whether it's a big institutional lender like Kiavi or somebody like this, or just like a local company. And it's great because you can look up these borrowers and then start to market to them. So if they're using a Kiavi or another institutional lender and they're not really pleased with the service, or it takes 45 days to close a loan, you can reach out to these people and say, hey, I'm a local hard money lender. These are our terms, these are our rates, this is how we do things, we can close fast. And it's just a little bit more personalized. And a lot of us, myself included, kind of have that small pipeline syndrome where, we have just a couple leads that trickle in. And so unfortunately you don't have, when you've only got 5 deals coming in, you've only got 5 deals to pick from. Whereas if you've got 10, 15, 100, you can cherry pick the best deals out of that. So that's something that I'm going to definitely focus on, is increasing that pipeline and that lead flow. And I've thought about reaching out to these SFR analytics guys just to make sure that, hey, maybe, this might be another way to find some more borrowers. Another takeaway, so number 2 that I learned was from Angela from Rehab Wallet. These guys are monsters in the space. I think they've got a $100 million fund, and it's just crazy. And a quick, easy little tidbit that I picked up was they mentioned they have a lady that manages all of their compliance. Part of her job is to manage draw requests and things like that. And so what they do is every 45 days, if a borrower has not taken a draw request, then they get a phone call. And this is really good because it's just a quick check-in, like, hey, you should be taking draws and you should be requesting these funds. Basically just means the project more than likely is not progressing. So this is just a kind of a preliminary step to stay on top of things and make sure that the project is progressing as expected. And it's just a good, easy tip to check in with the borrower and see how things are going. So I really liked that. Another thing I'm going to do is actually, along with that, I'm going to build that into our software automations through Lender, which you're familiar with. Lender is a software platform that we use to manage our entire loan portfolio, and it handles everything from origination to servicing. And so I'm going to build in some automation so that I get alerts if we don't have any draw requests within that 45-day timeline. So I just know, hey, I need to give the borrower a phone call. So really liked that. Number 3, I learned I was talking with a guy. His name is Harris, and he's the attorney that the hard money bankers Jason and Chris use, based out of Pennsylvania. And he does all of their loan documents and things like that, but he also does their title review and everything like that. And I was chatting with him over dinner one night, and he mentioned one thing that a lot of people don't do around title commitments is they don't really review them. And that's, one pro for using an attorney, obviously, is you can have someone who kind of knows what they're looking for and looking at to review your title commitments. One thing that he said is oftentimes title companies, obviously they're basically they are an insurance company. And so their job is to mitigate risk as much as possible. And obviously they're looking at their own company as a whole, and they want to mitigate, the amount of payouts that they have to pay out. And so what Harris was telling me was title companies will often add a clause in their title commitments saying that if something happens in between the time that a title search and a title search has been completed and a deed of trust has been recorded at the title company, or a mortgage if you're in a mortgage state, that grace period between those two time periods, they don't necessarily insure that. And this is something that on the title commitment, you can actually have them remove if it shows up there. But most people just let it go because they don't really know what they're looking for. And so he said they had a situation once where a title search was done and they were about to close on this loan. But in between that time, somebody had actually slipped in and filed another deed of trust at the county for that property, meaning that when they filed their deed of trust, they were actually in second lien position. And if they hadn't had that clause removed from the title commitment, they would be liable for that. But instead, they could open up a claim through title and be like, no, we had this insured and this is what it was supposed to cover. So really good trick there that I had never even heard of. So I'm going to begin doing that in my own title when I'm reading through the title commitment, just make sure that everything is hunky-dory, everything looks good like it's supposed to. Number 4 that I learned, this was when Chris was talking about defaults on day number 2. He was saying that typically what they have seen just over, quite literally thousands of loans that they've done, if a borrower has a low credit score and a large construction component, that is a very high likelihood for a default. And basically what he was saying was, more than likely, if you have a borrower who has low credit score, they typically don't know how to handle their own household finances. And so combine that with a large construction rehab, like $100,000 or $150,000 plus, that's a big lift. And so if you can't really handle your personal finances, what makes you think you're going to be able to handle a large construction project like that? We have done, I think our probably largest renovation ever was 175, or probably actually a little bit higher, but it was like 185,000. And that was a very large rehab project. It was the largest rehab project that we'd ever done. And it had, quite literally, we were rebuilding the entire house from the inside out. And so if you don't have that experience, that's kind of a red flag. I would probably not take on a project like that after listening to Chris, because it's a really good point, and I had just never thought of something like that. So really good to think about. Number 5, Chris also mentioned if a borrower is flipping a property that is noticeably nicer than their primary residence, even if they say they're not going to, chances are they're planning on moving into that property. And that's a big red flag, because you cannot, as a private lender, you cannot issue a loan on a primary residence. That goes against some different primary residence housing acts and different things like that you really just don't want to get into. So in that case, you really want to make sure that you have an agreement in there that says look, this is an investment purpose loan. This is not a primary residence. And you have to have them sign an affidavit that says what the proceeds from the funds are going to be, what the property is going to be used for, their exit strategy, things like that. But he's just found that people will often say, no, this is an investment property. But if it's significantly nicer, chances are they're planning on moving into it. So I thought that was really, really interesting. Chris said another thing that he, number 6, that he's seen was, oftentimes it's a red flag if you look at somebody's LLC and it was formed within the last week. And obviously that's kind of a no brainer, but just really interesting to think about because I had never really thought of that, like I was like, okay, cool. Like they're just getting into the business or whatever. But that's kind of a red flag, something you might want to dive into a little bit more if you've seen that, it's only a couple days old or 2 weeks old or whatever it is. So very, very interesting. Number 7, also from Chris, I learned a ton from Chris. He said, cash out refis have a higher likelihood of default simply because there's not a super clear exit strategy. And I was like, ooh, that's really interesting. So we have done cash out refis for loans in the past, but he's right. The few defaults that we have had were on cash out refis because there really isn't a clear exit strategy. Most people are like, well, we're going to sell or do this or that, but you start coming up on a year loan term and there still really isn't a good way to exit this. So I'm going to kind of incorporate that into our business a little bit more and just think about how do I want to mitigate this? I'm not entirely sure what that looks like yet, but I'm going to actively start thinking about that. Number 8, somebody, I can't remember who this was from, but I really liked this quote. It said, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And I was like, ooh, I really like that. Basically what that quote meant was just like, don't be greedy. In this business, it's really easy to just see borrowers as like these just dollar signs, just a points machine. And so people start adding on like all these junk fees and bogus like commitment fees. And, pretty soon you're tacking on a couple $1,000s in fees. And I realize like this is a business. It is a profit center. Of course we need to make money, but also like we need to provide a legitimate service. And when you start getting greedy, that's when you can have issues with, in your business. So I don't feel like we've had a problem with that in our own personal business. Like, we really don't charge many fees. After going to this conference, I'm actually going to start incorporating more fees, just to increase our revenue, but I don't think it's going to be an issue. But people that are charging $2,500 for a commitment fee, which really is just like, what is this for? Stuff like that I want to stay away from. So just a really good reminder. Number 9, this was a question that I actually asked. In the past, I had heard about people at the closing table, they'll have their borrower sign a quitclaim deed and they'll just hang on to it as kind of like an insurance policy. And so that in the event that the borrower does default or whatever, you can just take that signed quitclaim deed and then just go and record it at the county recorder's office. And I had always thought of that as, great, this is a really good security policy that I don't have to go through the foreclosure process. I just take the property back. And the attorney that was there, Harris, he kind of spoke up about this. And he's like, in his experience, what he has seen is that more than likely, this is not going to hold up in court. That is going to be very difficult to defend because essentially he said the foreclosure process is there for a reason. The foreclosure process allows people to go through the steps to, if they want to make sure that they can hang on to the property. And he said, you have to think like people have real capital invested in these projects. And so you can't just like, oh, nope, like I'm going to file this and take the property back. Like he said, more than likely is just not going to stand up in court. And so I was thinking about incorporating that into our business, but after seeing that, I'm going to decide against that and no longer do that. Unless, like he said, it's just like something that kind of tells the borrower like, hey, I've got this piece of paper. And it's just, again, like an additional insurance policy. I don't know, still toying with the idea, but it was really good to hear from Harris that that's probably not going to work. And then 10, last but not least, kind of the big takeaway that I got was NSF charges. NSF is an ACH code for non-sufficient funds. So Jason and Chris, they were saying every single month they get NSF kickbacks. So, they submit payments from or request payments from borrowers. They submit their notch file. They start pulling these ACHs. And then, like undoubtedly they'll at least get a couple NSF. So somebody doesn't have enough capital in their bank account to be able to cover these payments. And so what they started to do is now just, again, another profit center. They just start charging a $100 fee for every NSF that they get. And again, I don't think that's egregious, but I think it's enough to incentivize your borrowers. Hey, let's maybe make sure that we have money in there to cover these payments that we've committed to. So I don't personally, at least not yet, I don't personally collect monthly payments from borrowers. After going to this conference, that may be something that we change in our business because they talked a lot about net asset values and where we accrue all of our interest until the back end. you slowly chip away at that equity that you have in the property, and pretty soon you can get your margins to be really slim. So all good things that I learned, and hopefully that's beneficial to you as the listener. Obviously, I've got pages and pages of notes of different things that I learned, but these are kind of the key takeaways. There's another mastermind meeting in May. The location is to be determined, but I can't wait to go back. Again, it was so great meeting with people all across the country that are doing exactly what you're doing. It was so nice because this business, to be honest, is pretty lonely. It's a very niche business, and there's not a lot of people who are doing what we do. And so it was really great to be in a room talking with people who are struggling with the same things that we are, or have struggled with things that we're currently struggling with. And, I was able to ask them questions and hear how they were able to get past that. So, super, super valuable. I had a blast. It was a long week. It was a taxing week, but I learned so much and made some incredible friendships. So, hopefully, like I said, hopefully that's beneficial to you as a listener. Hopefully you've taken away a couple of these things, same things that I've learned. And the next time I go out and do this in May, I'll do another recap episode because it was really super beneficial. So, again, hopefully that was helpful. And then, until next week, thanks for listening.